the board. Our chair, Eric Davis, has a conflict that prevents him from being here with us this month. I now call this meeting to order and welcome all board members and advisors, staff, on-site visitors, online listeners, and Twitter followers. Remember to follow the North Carolina State Board of Education on Twitter at EdStateBoard_NC. We particularly welcome any of our local superintendents who may have joined us for this meeting today, and I ask that you stand and be recognized if you are a local superintendent who's with us today. Thank you very much for being here. We appreciate all the work you do in our local districts. I remind the audience and those listening that this body meets monthly with its official meeting scheduled for the first Thursday of the month. Discussion of agenda items are typically held on Wednesday prior to the official meeting day. I remind our on-site visitors and our online listeners that you can follow the meeting online and see materials by going to SBE Meetings at www.ncpublicschools.org. Board members, you are reminded that it is our duty to avoid conflicts of interest and the appearance of conflicts of interest as we handle the work of this board. Does any member of the board know of any conflict of interest or any appearance of conflict with respect to any matters coming before us at this meeting? If so, please state them for the record. If during the meeting you become aware of an actual or apparent conflict of interest, please bring the matter to the attention of the chair for this meeting. It will then be your duty to abstain from participating in a discussion on the matter and from voting on the matter. At this time, I will call on Board Member Reginald Keenan to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Mr. Vice Chair. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We will begin today's meeting with a report from our State Superintendent, Catherine Truitt. Superintendent.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. So good morning to everyone here with us in the room and those listening online. We'll go right ahead to the next slide, Maria. Thank you so much. So yesterday in my comments, I mentioned that I had the privilege of spending some time with the Beginning Teacher of the Year cohort for 2023. There are always about 27 Beginning Teachers of the Year in the cohort, and I have to say that this was an incredibly impressive group of beginning teachers. And I almost said young teachers, but they're not all young in age, because we have lots of beginning teachers who are second career teachers, and they are just as inspirational as their younger in age companions. So they spent a week at NCAT. I was able to be with them for 2 days, 2.5 days, and we talked about the themes of dedication, innovation, and the ability to inspire. And what my takeaway whenever I meet with beginning teachers is how some of them are so excited because they have found the right fit early on in their school, and they feel supported, and they feel like their administration has their back, and they've got great support with their colleagues. And then there are other beginning teachers who are saying, I can't stay at this school, I'm not supported, I'm drowning, I don't know where to turn for help. And I share this because this board heard a couple of months ago with our teacher attrition report that while attrition is largely stable in the teaching profession over the last 12 years, our beginning teachers leave at a rate of twice the rate as their veteran counterparts. They leave at a rate of 13%. And so that was one of the goals in this board and Pepsi's work with Pathways, was to create a system of licensure and compensation that would allow for beginning teachers to have the support that they so desperately need. And so this group, I mean, to a person, supported the idea of having built-in systems of mentorship in their schools as beginning teachers. Natalia Mejia was the winner. She is a multi-language learner teacher at C.C. Griffin STEM Middle School, and she was absolutely a powerhouse who just spoke so passionately about her students and their struggles as multi-language learners. And there is a picture on the next page. Just this was a teacher here who was a lateral entry teacher who got her degree from Western Governors University, North Carolina, which I used to have the privilege of leading. And so it was great to meet her and hear about her experiences being able to work while she pursued her degree. That same trip out west took me to Asheville, where I had the privilege of being part of a tour group to go inside a brand new facility called Pratt & Whitney, which is an aerospace manufacturer who has just built a turbine airfoil production facility in Asheville, in the outskirts of Asheville. It is a 1.2 million square foot facility. I don't have pictures because you're not allowed to take pictures inside because of all of their government contracts. But I've never seen anything like this before. 1.2 million square feet, 800 jobs over the next couple of years. They've already worked on hiring they're working on hiring their first 300. And they could have gone anywhere. This is a global company. And they had competitors in the eastern part of the United States. And they chose Asheville because Asheville was able to help Pratt & Whitney be the employer of choice that they wanted to be in this area. And so this was a $650 million investment. The land was granted to Pratt & Whitney with the condition that they would pay a living wage and that they would give excellent benefits. And that's exactly what they've done. And they also have a program where on the first day of employment, Pratt & Whitney will pay for you to get any degree that you choose, including a PhD. It's an amazing investment in people, and we got to talk to people who are already working there, and they all came from other places, and they just absolutely raved about their experience working at Pratt & Whitney. Interestingly enough, they have this does not look like a factory that a lot of us of a certain age think about when we think about a factory. It is all computer programmed. So the hourly wage workers are actually programming machinery to run. They're not making widgets. And so there is a partnership with AB Tech, the community college in Asheville, to help grow the pipeline of folks that they need to be employed there. And what I was told was that they're quite comfortable with getting their first 400 or so employees, but after the first 400 employees, they told me they're going to have to start going to the high school. And so this program at AB Tech is about, it's a machining fundamentals program. It's about 15 weeks, and you can Pratt & Whitney's making it free for the student. And the next slide, please. And manufacturing experience is not necessary for this opportunity. So this was just a fantastic example of how our community college partners and businesses are working together and are going to start reaching down into area high schools to attract people to come and be a part of this this factory at Pratt & Whitney. And so, next slide please, this was all happening at the same time that the computer science legislation was making its way through, and there have been a couple of bumps with this legislation, but where we have landed is that without eliminating any other graduation requirements, computer science will be added to, as we heard yesterday when Jamie Falkenberry presented, will be added to the graduation requirements for our students. And when we say computer science, we're not talking about classes that already exist, like Microsoft Office or Excel. There are Excel honors classes available to students. These are true computer science courses that have to do with coding, programming, software, and we have districts that are doing this already, but it's certainly not a majority of districts. And so we've already paid to give professional development to a large number of teachers, and with the computer science legislation came an ask of funding to be able to continue to give professional development to another cohort of teachers, so that every student will have access to at least one of the 30 different approved computer science courses in CTE. I also had the chance to meet with the Economic Development Partnership of North Carolina. This is a bipartisan organization that supports the Department of Commerce in helping to attract businesses to our state. And of course, North Carolina routinely is ranked #1 for, as in like #1 state to do business in, #1 business climate. And so we continue every month when I attend Council of State meetings, our Secretary of State is able to share all of the business and job creation that's going on in North Carolina. And while other states are losing population and businesses are leaving, North Carolina is gaining population, and our economy continues to grow. And this organization is incredibly interested in how to answer the question when businesses are looking to come here, whether they are international or national. The question is, am I going to be able to find the talent I need in order to staff this business? And there are states where the answer is no. And so the EDP&C is very interested in the portrait of a graduate, in computer science legislation, and in school performance grade redesign, as well as early literacy, because they have a vested interest in strengthening K-12 education, ensuring that the investments made are happening, and they recognize that our economy cannot grow if we don't educate the people who live in our state. On March 17th, the department held the 10th anniversary of the Center for Safer Schools. We had an amazing group down in room 150, joined us, folks from the Department of Public Safety, Secretary Buffalo was present. We had legislators who are now retired, who were part of the original legislation that created the Center for Safer Schools. And we got to hear about not just the progress that's been made, but also what is to come. And so we heard about some of the programming that's currently happening through the Center of Safer Schools. For example, there's a program called EKG2, which is targeted at 7th graders, that is all about preventing gun violence. That talks about the legal ramifications, the emotional consequences of youth gun possession, substance abuse, and the related gun violence that comes with substance abuse. Shine and Seed programs will look to develop leadership skills in our youth, help them with healthy relationships and setting proper boundaries, basics of how to engage safely with social media, because remember, the Center for Safer Schools is also about preventing bullying, whether it's in person or cyberbullying. And also talking about the importance of community engagement. We know that when students have a community of support, they are less likely to engage in gangs. Also, they're looking at mental health first aid for students, in particular teens, so that they can recognize when a peer is in trouble. There was also training on the rave panic alarm, which alerts authorities to an active shooter, as well as other kinds of fire and medical emergencies. And then we talked a lot about the temporary training center in Moore County that will support the mission of promoting safe learning environments in all schools. And that includes receiving trainings on behavioral threat assessments. So all in all, it was a very kind of sobering day, but also one of celebration that we have invested so much time and energy into creating programming that can turn on a dime and address some of these big challenges. I mean, the survey data that I see routinely, whether it's statewide or nationwide, shows that parents' biggest concern right now is school safety. And it's not just school climate. I mean, I try to, I always try to think about the statistics, and I don't really spend a lot of time worrying about gun violence in my kids' public schools. However, parents are very worried. And we have parents reach out to us all the time saying, what is being done? Because they're not always aware of what's happening. But it really is top of mind for a lot of parents. Probably, I think it's probably because of not just the escalation in gun violence that we've seen in schools, but also the number of hoaxes that happen not just in North Carolina, but all over the country. Also in March, Miss Julie Pittman and I had the opportunity to visit Lockhart Elementary. We were invited to come and see specifically how they were implementing letters in this Title I elementary school. And we were lucky enough that some folks from Wake County Public Schools Central Office joined us to see what was happening. And we learned that Wake County is embarking on a pilot with Lexia, who is the company that does the letters professional development. And they are doing a pilot with middle school teachers. And so it's very, very small right now, but it got us to thinking about what that might look like on a larger scale. And so we had the Wake County folks come to DPI, and Dr. Marr and some others on the team, we sat and met with them, and we have a path forward, and we know that Lexia is engaging the Office of Early Learning as well, and so we are actively looking to see what we can do for our middle school teachers. And then we also, March is the month the Youth Legislative Assembly meets. These are students who come from all over the state. They declare a party affiliation. They become either part of the House or the Senate, and they come and they sit in the room where the legislature gathers and has committee meetings, or not just committee meetings, but whole caucus meetings. And so they got to, they actually have a swearing-in session that was led by Auditor Wood. And then I had the privilege of speaking to them. Then they actually have an incredible couple of days participating in civic engagement. And I got to speak to some of the students who participate, and they just absolutely love it. And then finally, Last week, I had the chance to go to 2 charter schools, one of which recently had came before this board, and that is the Movement Charter School in the Charlotte area, in Union County, very close to Charlotte. And I have to say I was absolutely thrilled with what I saw. At Union Academy, which is K to 12, I got to meet, I had a student-led tour, which I always love, because a student-led tour without other adults from the building is really where you get a chance to hear the real deal, because as our teachers and principal know, students don't hold back anything. And so you really have a chance to ask the questions that you might not get to ask if other adults were present. And these kids just, I mean, they could not stop talking about their school. They absolutely loved their school. And they have an incredible marching band program there, as well as arts program, career and technical education. I mean, it had it all. And then the movement school that I went to, which was an elementary school, was kind of like my dream school for what support looks like for teachers. There were coaches in the building who, in real time, come into a classroom, and the teacher knows that they can come in at any time. This is a 95% African American school, high poverty, and these children are doing better than the surrounding schools are. And these coaches come in, and they might observe what's happening for 5 minutes, and then they will help the teacher course correct, or help the teacher to maybe identify things that he or she didn't see, whatever the case, and the kids know the coaches. So it's a different paradigm for sure, because we think of teachers, I mean, most teachers have an incredible amount of autonomy in their classroom at any given time. And these teachers did not have that kind of autonomy necessarily all the time. So it was a different model. It's working for these students. They don't have teacher turnover, and it was very, very interesting to see, and then speak with their leadership afterwards. And that concludes my report, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Are there questions, comments for Superintendent True? Yes, Ms. Carper.
Just about school safety, I appreciate what was mentioned about how parents are, it really is on the forefront of their minds every day. It's also on the forefront of the educators' minds too. I know that you talk to them all the time about it. And it's something that every teacher I interact with, they don't ask if it's gonna happen to them, they wonder when. That's what they wonder. I know teachers who keep an extra pair of shoes in their drawer so that they can switch their shoes really fast so they can run. I've heard teachers say that they're afraid when they hear a balloon pop in the hallway or when they hear a locker door slam. And teachers have asked me, what are we doing? What are we doing? Why is it that hospitals have security guards but schools do not? And they both hold the same amount of people. Why is it that a sweet old lady is the person who's standing between somebody who wants to hurt somebody, who wants to hurt children, and you know, the children? Why is it that it's one person sitting at a front desk? And I wonder the same question. What are we doing? What are we doing to make sure that our kids are safe? And I'm grateful for the technologies that you have mentioned. It's very exciting, the things that are coming. But I would advocate that we need human beings. We need people whose only job it is at schools is to protect our children. It should not be put on the teachers to protect everything about them, their minds, their hearts, their spirits, and their physical bodies. It's too much for us to do, and it's a reason why we're losing teachers.
Thank you for that. May I respond?
Please.
Please.
I think that is certainly not just startling, but hard to hear. And what I would say is that there has been a lot, I mean, I think more money than I'm actually comfortable with given to schools in the form of school safety grants. I mean, over $70 million. It's a lot of money that could go to other things that has to go to school safety grants for all the reasons that you just said. And districts have the ability to choose how they use those dollars. And not all districts choose to employ people who will protect in the way that you've just described. And so I would encourage people to reach out to their local boards of education and their local superintendents if they are wondering how those school safety grant dollars were spent. Thank you for sharing your concerns in such a brave way.
Yes, Lieutenant
I
Governor.
wanted to chime in on that as well. That's something I've been saying from the very beginning on the school safety issue, and I think the reason why nothing has been done is because everybody wants to look at something else. I mean, certainly we need to look at mental health. We need to look at a myriad of other things. But, you know, if you go back in history and you look, when John F. Kennedy was killed in an open-top car, what did the Secret Service do? They said no more open-top cars. Put a top on the car, and they took steps, they looked at what happened, they evaluated it, they tried to eliminate it as much as possible. When 9/11 happened, what did we do? We shut down the airports, evaluated our security, and we did what we needed to do to ramp that security up to keep that from happening again. Now, what do we do after Columbine? Nothing. The next one, nothing. The next one, nothing. And every time people bring up this issue, the very first thing people say is, do you know how much money that's going to cost? I don't know about you, but I don't see a dollar sign on my kid's life. I don't. And it's high time we stop putting everything in front of us and start taking a look at our schools and realize they are soft targets for madmen and women who want to do damage, and we need to protect our kids. We need to put our money where our mouth is and start hardening these schools. And does that mean turning them into armed camps? No. When you go into a bank, is it an armed camp? No. Do we arm the tellers in the banks? No. We build a security system around them to protect them. We do the same thing in our airports. We can do it in our schools. But it's a matter of us putting politics aside and doing what we need to do for our children and those institutions. And we just simply have not done it. And I totally agree with you. High time we do it. High time we do it.
Thank you. Other comments? Yes, Dr. Oxendine.
And Superintendent Truitt, but you touched on what I think is maybe not all the problem, but the fact that the General Assembly has provided grants, or maybe from the federal sources, but in the same breath, giving districts the option of using it other ways. I mean, that defies common sense. If the money is targeted for school safety, then it should be spent for school safety.
Yes,
So to be clear, the money has to be spent on school safety, but how one district defines school safety is different from another. And so one school might purchase a badging system, use the money, instead of, I'm just gonna be clear, instead of using it to employ an SRO, an officer, they're using it to buy equipment, like a badging system with a visitor sticker that takes a picture when you come in. So they could have an SRO,
So
they
it's
choose not to have an
It's
SRO.
defensible in terms of it is indirectly about safety.
Right, that's right.
Yes, Mr. Hall.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I wholeheartedly agree with the comments made by his colleague here, along with the Lieutenant Governor, concerning, and the one thing he said, I've always said, what value do you put on the life of a child or an individual? Makes no difference. The cost factor for safety equipment is high. Example, a school in my area was completed here recently. And the cost of bulletproof glass just blew some of us out of the water. A square of bulletproof glass. And I was concerned whether or not industry understands this, where the leadership role understand the importance of this. And even with resource officers, it is difficult to find and pay for one. Because most resource officers won't be on the street. It's seldom, I mean, not seldom, but to get one and go through the training for, to be in the school 99% of the time. I think you know what I'm talking about. See, there's so many things out here that's pulling away from the fact that we can do better for our children and our teachers. We can do better.
That's right. Sadly, one of those things is politics. I see it all the time. I've seen companies that want to go in and donate safety glass and donate equipment, and they're pushed out because of politics. We've just become so stubborn and bullheaded in this country about our politics that we won't put it aside for the greater good. And that's all of us. We've just gotten our buckets and we won't get it done. But on this issue,
There is no way.
that's right. No way.
The thing that, let me shut up. I think Mr. Chairman.
No, thank you, Mr. Hall,
We
appreciate
just
those
got- We
comments.
just got to do better.
That's right.
We just got to do
All
better.
of us.
And someone said a minute ago, the teachers were saying, not if it's gonna happen, or when it's gonna happen. It can happen anywhere, at any time, at any moment. Whether it's urban, rural, it makes no difference. But I will shut up, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Mercer?
Thank you. I can't disagree with anything anyone has said. But I think also, having officials in the school system that have the trust of the public. I was asked recently at a community gathering, what were we doing about safety? And I shared in general terms, but I also shared, we can't be too specific or we're weakening the things that we do. So we need to have the trust of the people when we say, look, we do have someone, cameras and people watching perimeters. The vestibules, safety vestibules, which is, great. But when you go to some of the older buildings we have, it's so difficult when the entrance is here and the office is way across and different things. But we are doing it. And we have a safety person that's 100% of their time is built into schools looking, what can we do? And that's been most helpful to us. But we can't be too specific about what we're doing to protect the children. And finding the weak spots where people have a path to cross the campus, doing things without creating a problem, making people circle the campus so you don't have people there. Sometimes they see an opportunity and it's a matter of opportunity. They'll enter a building or do something, but we have all our doors stay locked, as everybody does. And but I agree with everybody. And I don't think we need to say it's so massive we can't be 100%. But we need to be the highest percent we can in protection of them. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Mercer. Yes. Lily?
I have two younger siblings who are in 4th and 5th grade, and it's really hard to have conversations about school shootings with a 10 and 11-year-old. And you drop them off at school each day, telling them to have a great day, when you don't know what's going to happen after you drop them off. So I just think it is something that is definitely at the forefront of my mind and my community's mind right now. So I think there needs to be a way to reassure our students and teachers that we are doing the best we can to keep them safe when you drop them off at school every day to learn. Because that should be the sole purpose of going to school, is to learn, not being scared if you're gonna end up really hurt. So, yeah.
Thank you.
Marcella.
Marcella.
Kind of piggyback off of what she said. I don't have any younger siblings, but I am the younger sibling. And when I was younger, at the school that I'm at right now, there was a bomb threat siblings were like the most situation you could be in, but it's not something that we grasp, and I don't think those children are grasping that they could go to school and lose their lives. And it's scary growing up and coming to that realization that your entire childhood you've been in danger in the place that you should be safest at. Some students don't have a great home life. They go to school and that's their safe place. It should be their safe place, and it's not anymore. And it hasn't been. Our entire childhood, I've been doing lockdown drills since before I knew how to breathe. I've mastered how to hide more than I had mastered how to read and how to count numbers and how to multiply. And it's sad. And I'm from Mexico. My entire family lives in Mexico. My cousins don't know what a lockdown drill is. I told them that I was just telling a story about a regular day, and I was like, oh yeah, we had a lockdown drill. And they said, what is a lockdown drill? They don't understand that. They don't understand how you could be unsafe at school. And it's something that is so unique and it's only something that an American student would understand, and it shouldn't be. It should be something that no student understands. I shouldn't go to school wondering if that is where I'm going to be hurt or lose my life, or if my friends that I've grown up with are going to lose their life. That's not how it should be. Because just like we said, it's never been is this going to happen? It's preparing for when it does happen. And we shouldn't have to do that.
Thank you. Ms. White?
So part of the conversation also centers around barriers to implementation. And cost is probably one of the biggest, or I would say it's at the top of the totem pole. But other things that play into the decision-making matrix here are aesthetics and the amount of time that it takes to put security in place with fidelity. And I'm going to suggest to you that we've got to get rid of all three of those. When is the last time that we had a shooting in one of our state incarceration facilities? Think about the fencing and the security that's in place for those facilities. We should provide that same sense of security for the most precious asset that our states have. So if it takes putting fences up to protect the border around the school, we're doing it in other places all across our state. Go to Amazon in the Garner facility. We're protecting all of those wonderful things that we all shop for because we put a high place and high priority on those products. Our children and our teachers are not products. If we need to put fences up, put fences up. If it takes time, an additional 45 minutes to get students and staff inside the building for the day, is what we must do. It's the cost of making sure our schools are safe.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions for the superintendent today? This has been a very thoughtful discussion on a very difficult issue, and I appreciate everyone's involvement. As one of the indicators, just there's so many complexities of the issue. Example, a fire inspector wants as many exits to a new school building as possible for obvious reasons and in the interest of fire safety. A safety security expert wants as few of points of entry and exit as possible, again, consistent with what their particular focus is. So it's just an illustration of there are a lot of issues and they're dealt with in different ways in different places. Given the level of interest here and sincerity and sense of urgency felt by the board, I think it would be helpful if we perhaps had an issues presentation on school safety issues to try to have some deeper understanding. Our Center for Safer Schools is expanding because of the issue, and I do want to say that there are people that have been hired full-time to work on these issues, and there are more and more of them because of the because of the importance of the issue. And also I have the privilege of serving on the Governor's Safety Task Force, which brings together law enforcement authorities from around the state and at the state level, and people from other departments within the state, as well as our DPI department and the Center for Safety Schools. And that group meets regularly and again works on initiatives and has in fact moved forward with several initiatives in terms of trying to protect children and increasing safety. So I do want to say there are things that are going on, but as has been pointed out, we can't do enough with barriers that still exist, but we need to work hard to work through the barriers, and I appreciate the superintendent's leadership in bringing up these points today, which has obviously sparked a lot of interest.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair.
All right. At this point, with thanks to the superintendent for her presentation, we will now move on to our issues session for today. We know that COVID-19 has been something we've much discussed in terms of the effect it has had on our educational institutions and our educational progress across the state. Students have lost some learning time, and some of our students have fallen behind as a result of the issues presented. John Paul Smith from the North Carolina Education Corps is here to give us an update on the work of the North Carolina Education Corps to help students make up ground and get back on track. So we welcome John Paul for an update. Oh, and we have Mike Ward as well.
You got set and spiked this morning.
Yeah. I did not realize we had a double team. That's great. Welcome.
We're not going to be twice as long as a result. We'll still keep it brief. Good morning, board members. It's good to be with you all. We thank you for this opportunity to provide an update about the North Carolina Education Corps. And we're grateful for our partnership with you and with the Department of Public Instruction in this work that we're doing. I'm Mike Ward. I'm lead volunteer and chair of the board for the North Carolina Education Corps. And it's a privilege to get to do this work in North Carolina school districts. We were launched by the state board and the office of the governor in the heart of the pandemic. While schools were still shut down, the job description of our Corps members at that time was whatever a school needs doing. So we put service-minded members of the community into schools to help schools out in the midst of the pandemic. But you'll recall that when schools went back to full-time in-person learning, we shifted to a very deliberate model of literacy tutoring in K-3 classrooms. We're in, let's move to the next slide. We're in 29 PSUs around the state, and our tutors are delivering service every day in a high dosage, high intensity model of tutoring to our K-3 students. You all heard a great report yesterday about the progress that's being made. That's an incredible piece of good news. We're delighted that we get to be your partner and helping out in that incredible mission. And I'm going to turn it over to John Paul. I just appreciate the opportunity to greet you this morning and to thank you for your collaboration and support. By the way, we are seeking the support of the General Assembly as well. The General Assembly has provided an appropriation that's been extraordinarily helpful as we've done this work, and we've also been out securing foundation dollars that have helped us do this work as well. And we met just this morning over in the General Assembly about continuing support for the North Carolina Education Corps. I'm going to turn it over to John Paul to provide a few specific details about our progress, and we'll be ready for any questions you have.
Thank you, Mike. So John Paul Smith, Executive Director of the North Carolina Education Corps. So we have tutors that are working in 29 PSUs across the state. This includes traditional school districts, charter schools, as well as a UNC System lab school. We've placed over 540 tutors in schools this year. This includes tutors who are community college and college students, tutors who are parents, caregivers, as well as retirees and retired teachers are stepping up to serve students. We have taken an approach where we're really looking at how can we serve different types of districts in ways that advance student learning, accelerate student learning, but are also appropriate to local school conditions and the tutors that they may have available in their local community. In the process of that, we have learned a lot over the past couple of years, including that differentiated pay for retired teachers versus community college and college students, it works really well. It makes sense for the districts to pay tutors different rates based on their experience level in schools. We also know that differentiated training works really well too. So some of our retirees need some more support on how to use technology. Community college and college students need a little bit more support on making sure that they know how to show up to schools professionally, on time, and some training that's grounded in the science of reading as they approach kids to really help accelerate their learning. So we'll continue to learn and refine our model based on our learning and continue to improve the tutor support of students over time. Ready for the next slide? So as I just mentioned, all the tutors receive training. The training is grounded in the science of reading. For the literacy focus, they get training that's pre-service. They also get in-service training and coaching support. The majority of our staff members are coaches, many former classroom teachers that are providing ongoing coaching to these tutors to make sure that what they're doing with the students really leads to student growth and results. And so that's been a big benefit to the tutors. Ready for the next slide? We have been focused on accountability and rigorous research from the get-go. So since we've been focused on K-3 literacy, we've partnered with Duke University and NC State on a program evaluation. They've been conducting surveys since last year to make sure that we're providing high-quality support to the schools and to the tutors. And they've also, what they'll be able to do this year is show the kind of quantitative impact that the tutors are having on the students and their academic growth. What we've done is to make sure that they're able to do that really well is each tutor at the end of their session tracks which student are they working with. Are they actually following the high dosage model where they're working one-on-one or with up to 3 students at a time? Are they actually working 30 minutes a session 3 times a week? What skills are they working on? So this is really rich data for the program evaluators to be able to look at to make sure we're getting the bang for the buck and that the tutors are actually helping to accelerate student growth. Ready for the next slide? So we've gotten some highlights from the qualitative surveys and just conversations from our school partners. It's hard to read here, but these are different. This is some feedback that we've gotten from different schools while we're waiting on the quantitative data. The schools themselves have actually been able to collect some data through the M-Class middle of the year assessments, and they're already showing student growth with the students that have received support from the tutors. So we're very happy about that, and they're very happy about the support that they're getting from the tutors. Ready for the next slide? So we continue to focus on 3 big things as we grow. One is we always want to make sure that our tutors are providing really quality support to students. So that's a big thing. The second one is we know that there are a lot of students across the state who could benefit from high-dosage tutors. We are just beginning to scratch the surface of rising to the level of student need. So we're thinking about how can we continue to refine our model so we can increase the number of students served, we make sure that they're receiving quality support, and we're also very cost-effective. So we're paying attention to things like cost per student served, and making sure that we're continuing to refine our operating model so we get even more and more efficient over time so that we can grow, become more sustainable, and support more students for many years to come. Ready for the next slide? So big picture view, this right here is a graphic of how we've grown over the last couple years. So last year, about this time, we had just around 230, 240 tutors. We've placed 540 this year, so basically doubled the number of tutors since last year. We've expanded our funding cushion, so we're drawing down on the ESSER funds. We've also raised additional funds from the Goodnight Educational Foundation, Spangler Foundation, both tripled their initial investments in this work. Benefit from the support of the State Employees Credit Union, Mebane Foundation, and we'll continue to pursue this in a public-private partnership fashion. So we're in a good place there. We now have the tutor session tracker so that we can track what's happening in every single tutor session across the state. We can look at a data dashboard and see how are we doing statewide, how are we doing in individual districts, how are individual schools doing, and we can actually drill down into how many tutoring sessions an individual tutor has had, how many sessions an individual student has. So this is really rich data that we can dig into. So we feel like we're in a great place right now. We're preparing for the future, where we know that we want to continue to grow and expand support for more students across the state. We know we're going to be entering into kind of this post-ESSER world, which will be a different operating environment. And so we're making sure that we have our ducks in a row to continue to support students as the ESSER funds expire and the need continues. Any questions?
Yes, Dr. Oxendine.
Thank you ever so much. I've been on the state board a long time, and I've had reasons to always be impressed with initiatives and ideas coming our way. This one is way up there, because this effort to very strategic focus on tutoring is so rich and so rare, because tutoring has all kind of definitions, and it looks a 1,000 different ways. And it probably still does look different in the schools, but at least there is something capturing it and tracking it. And I'd love to learn more about your dashboard. I've jotted down, I think there are, let's see, Cumberland, Bladen, and Scotland in my region.
Yeah.
So I definitely will be knocking on doors.
Terrific.
I just say, keep it up.
Thank you.
Mr. Hall.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. John Falk, could you talk a little about, we're K3, you're K3 now.
Yes.
Down the road, are you moving to K5 anytime soon? Or, I'm hearing a lot about that age group.
Yeah. So
getting into the middle school area.
Yeah, so we know that the need expands beyond K3. We also know that the need expands beyond literacy too. So we've heard from our districts both that they'd like to see us expand to K5 literacy. And they've also requested, based on how they feel about the literacy tutoring, that they'd like to see us get into math tutoring as well. And so when it comes to the literacy tutoring, what's really important is that the tutors are focused on the specific skill that the student needs help with. So our students have been, or our tutors have been very focused on helping students build their foundational skills, specifically phonics and phonological awareness. And that comes from kind of leadership and guidance from you all. And there are 4th and 5th graders who need that skill too. So as much as we want to get as upstream as possible and accelerate student learning with K3 students, that's really important. We also know that there are students in other grades who need the same type of support and could benefit from tutoring. So as we think about next year, we're thinking about expanding into kind of K5 literacy support, still maintaining focus on phonics. And then also, we want to be really deliberate in making sure that we maintain high quality support for any student. And so as we think about responding to the demands around math tutors, we want to maintain that kind of deliberate focus, make sure we're not letting our reach outstrip our grasp. We're going to pilot in a really small way what math tutoring looks like, elementary math tutoring looks like next year. And build a strong foundation upon which we can build after that.
Thank you, sir.
Ms. White.
I have a question and then a follow.
Okay.
Would you say that the majority of the volunteers that you have recruited have some sort of educational background, some sort of history, employment, or other in education?
It's mixed. So we have tutors who do have educator backgrounds. We have retired teachers. Some of the parents are former classroom teachers who are no longer working full-time as classroom teachers. But I think, one of the great opportunities that we've been able to tap into is there are a lot of folks with passion for kids who want to know how they can support students in targeted ways. And with a little bit of training and support from our coaches, they can do that as high-impact tutors. So we're really looking, and this opens up more opportunities to community college and college students. Many of them do have an interest in getting an education. So this has a dual value add of we're supporting students, but this is also a talent pipeline for future educators. One thing that's been interesting about the community college and college students is that actually more students who are in non-education tracks have been stepping up to serve tutors that are in education tracks, which indicates two things to us. One, there's a lot of opportunity with to engage community college and college students because there are just more students who are non-education majors. And then two, there are really rich opportunities to provide more structured kind of work-based learning opportunities for those non-education majors, in addition to the structured opportunities that the education majors get. And they're fantastic too. There are just fewer of them, so lots of opportunities with engaging a broader tent.
My follow is, and I don't want us to chase a rabbit here, but going back to the school safety discussion, why could we not tap the thousands of retired military, retired sheriff, retired police to build the same kind of safety corps using your same platform and metric to put volunteers in place to shore up security at our school? They would be trained, they would have the background, they would be volunteers, most likely retired, probably not college students. But we have an amazing floor of military personnel right here in our state that probably have an hour or two to spend, or maybe a day to give. That would be incredible assets. It's just a thought. Why couldn't we do the same thing with school safety, tapping into the resources that we have? Not for y'all to answer, but it's out of the box, and I think look at what you've done in 2 years. Incredible.
I do want to offer just one clarification. Our Corps members receive a stipend. And so, in fact, it's a shared responsibility in terms of expense between the Corps and the districts, the PSUs, the charters, the lab school that we work with. We provide the recruitment, the initial vetting, the training that we've aligned with the work that's going on here at the department, and the ongoing coaching support for these folks. But the districts pay an hourly stipend, so both entities have skin in the game.
Dr. Doc?
Yes. Is there any way, do you see kind of an avenue into schools of education to work with students, teacher ed students?
We've been having those conversations. We think that's a very rich potential source of growing our program. We'd love to be a formal part of that practicum continuum in the colleges of education, and so we've had some early conversations with deans about that. It's a great idea.
Do you mind if I share it back at my school?
Oh, absolutely.
Thank you.
Yes, there you go.
I agree with your comments also. A lot of people think that way. There might be some tough stuff coming down the pipe on that, as a matter of fact. But on the tutoring thing, I was sitting here listening, and I really, I was an adult student for the majority of my time in college, and I remember they told us, hey, if you go to the student aid office, you can find a list of tutors. So I figured I'd go find 5 people on the list somewhere to do tutoring. No, it was 6 or 7 pages of people. And I thought, wow, this many people need, because that's why I'm here. Because a lot of times in classrooms, I know, and I'm speaking from my own experience, a lot of times in a classroom, I don't mean this, I'm not saying this because teachers don't do a great job. I'm saying this because sometimes I don't do a great job listening. When the teacher talks, a lot of times it's garbled to a student. A lot of times they just hear garble. They're confused. The teacher stand up in front with a blackboard. When they sit down with someone one-on-one, it makes all the difference in the world. I can't tell you how many students I graduated with from college who said the reason why they graduated was because of a tutor. So I think this might be a great solution to our literacy problem, is by having that one-on-one tutoring. So kudos to you all for this work.
Thank you for your support.
Any other questions or comments? One last thing I'd pick up on, so you can close, but one last thing I'd pick up on is that during the course of our meeting here last day or so, the question of the need for middle school tutoring for literacy has come up. It's that, and it's a substantial need, and it's been voiced on many occasions at this table. So I'd say it's fair to say we would encourage, if there's a way to ultimately get to middle school tutoring. It appears there's a real need from all the reports we get from the field. So last observation, but please go ahead and close.
I just wanted to end where we began. We wanted to thank you. We're delighted to be in partnership with you in this important work. And I also wanted to thank two additional members of our board who are here, Jeff Coltrane and Superintendent Truitt are also members of our board.
Thank you very much. We appreciate the presentation.
Thank you.
We will now take a 15-minute break until 10:20. So we are now about to move to action and discussion agenda with respect to our committee meetings and receive our committee reports. Before we start, one brief item. I learned that Dr. Jeff McDarris, who is here today, is one of the superintendents from Transylvania County, is retiring after 40 years in education, June 30th. So let me ask you to stand so we can honor your service. People like you who make our educational system what it is, and thank you so much for your long time, outstanding efforts. So a second point is I want everybody to think about staying till we get to the chairman's comments, not because I'm going to say anything, but I read an article in the ideas section of the newspaper about 3 weeks ago in our local paper. I was very moved by it. And dozens of people have talked to me about it since. And I thought to myself, we need to get the author to speak to us. As it happens, I knew the author, and so to keep you now on edge, the author will be here to share that publication with us during the chair's comments, and it will reinforce how important, things that are very important to us, how important it is to feed our children, how wonderful so many of our classified employees are, and what a difference it makes in the lives of our children. All things close to the heart of this board, as this board has shown time and time again, particularly through the pandemic. So, something to look forward to. So now, also looking forward to our committee reports. I say that as I looked over at Ms. Camden and Ms. White, who have carried quite a load this meeting.
There was groans over here.
Yeah, I heard them. Ms. Candace, if you would start with our report with respect to student learning and achievement, please.
My pleasure to report on student learning and achievement. And I work with Dr. Olivia Oxendine on this committee. We had 2 items of new business. The first was our monthly report on the K-12 Science and Healthful Living Standards. Over the past month, the Draft 2 survey of the science standards was closed, and the data from that survey is currently being analyzed and organized. The next step is that the Data Review Committee will meet to review the data and prepare a report, which will then be reviewed by the standards writing team as they prepare Draft 3, which will be the final draft. And will then come to us when it is ready. And on the healthful living side, the standards writing team is working on Draft 1, and it will be shared with across the state with the first 2 surveys that go out, and also with us as soon as it is complete. Our second item of new business was voices and context from the summer programming field. The Office of Learning Research and Acceleration and Qualitative Research Team partnerships that have been underway under ESSER funding over the last several years to take a close look at our summer programming in the last 2 summers. This is qualitative research, so a different set of data. Their final report, which is a synthesis of their findings, is also being shared with the General Assembly. Common themes around the summer learning extension, summer bridge, and career accelerator were explored. Recommendations and implications included the need for increased support for fiscal and human resources, the importance of program length and timing in the organizational design of these programs, the need for integrated mental health support, which did not surprise anyone as a finding, the extension of practices, the need to extend practices from summer learning throughout the school year, the importance of creation of networks of teacher support, and as always, stronger relationships to improve academic outcomes. Our first item of action on first read is SLA 1, North Carolina Digital Learning Competencies for Educators and Administrators. An update to our digital learning plan and to digital student standards has necessitated this review to align professional learning with those plans. 56 educators from across the state formed work groups and developed 3 separate digital learning competencies for teachers, school administrators, and coaches. All the competencies are based on the International Society for Technology and Education Research standards and framework, which strives to create, to have technology create a rich learning environment for our students. SLA 2 is the North Carolina Standard Course of Study Internal Procedures Manual. These are some minor revisions to this manual that we approved in February 2022, and it's the manual that's been guiding the work of the teams that we heard about in the standards update and new business. Several updates and changes are being proposed based on the experiences of the Office of Academic Standards with the manual over the last year or two. The changes will clarify the practices in several steps of the process, provide guidance as to the inclusion of extended content standards within the process, and the addition of a general survey during the revision process. Both of those are action on first read. Our first discussion item was a joyous occasion, I would say. It was agreed to achieve formative assessment mid-year update by Dr. Ryan. The middle of the year data on K-3 reading achievement in North Carolina was compared to both the beginning of the year data and to national data. Our percentages of students on track and ready for core instruction showed growth from the beginning of the year to the middle of the year in all grades, and our students were across the board above the national averages. Likewise, when we looked at the percentage of students in need of intensive intervention, we reduced our numbers in all grades but third. The data was positive among all demographics, and the conclusion is that our investment in letters training and the hard work and commitment of our teachers is paying off quickly and setting our students up for success in their later grades and for their futures. We're in the early days of this work, so our expectations are high that we'll see even faster improvement in the data as our teachers' understanding of the science of reading grows. So wonderful news from the middle of the year test cycle. And we will hear about the end of the year next fall, as we always do. So look forward to that report. SLA 4 is the 2023 State Advisory Council on Indian Education annual report. Dr. Tiffany Locklear is the chair of SACE, and she shared this report with us. It began with state-level findings on EOG, EOC, graduation and dropout rates, and suspension data. Sadly, the data continues to show disturbing gaps between American Indian students and the overall state results. However, we did see growth. There are still gaps, but there is movement in the right direction. In terms of recommendations, SACE remains strongly committed to a department-level position at DPI dedicated to American Indian Education Services. Then also, they are advocating for the enactment of previous recommendations which are tied into the fulfillment of the state board's own vision for opportunity equity. They also, we heard very strongly of their desire to continue to look across the state at schools who have mascots that are offensive to American Indian students and others, and they've urged that we continue that work. Dr. Locklear closed with a brief overview of the 2023 SACE Summit, which was held in January in Cumberland County. It focused on tribal programming that supports American Indian education, the Waccamaw Sioux and STEM project, and affirmation and recommitment to equitable and intentional practices for American Indian students. And finally, we have one consent item, which is SLA 5, high school accreditation recommendations. Schools have the option of requesting accreditation from the State Board of Education, and this year we are voting on accreditation for 7 schools in Buncombe County, 3 in Carteret, and 1 each in Perquimans and Yancey. They're being recommended for approval. And that concludes the SLA report.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Ms. Cannons? Not hearing any, we will now go to Ms. White with the report from the ECIS committee.
Good morning, Vice Chair Duncan and fellow board members, Lieutenant Governor Robinson, Superintendent Truitt. I'm Amy White. I'm the chair of the Education, Innovation, and Charter School Committee, along with Ms. Jill Camnitz. Probably going to be a little more methodical in our discussions today, and if there are pauses, particularly when we get to the charter school renewal discussion, I'll just beg your forgiveness in advance. We'll start with EICS 1. So EICS 1 is a request from Raleigh Oak Charter School to relocate. Charter School Law 115C-218.7 says that enrollment growth requests greater than 30% must come before the Charter School Advisory Board and subsequently to the State Board of Education in order to have approval. And Raleigh Oak has identified land that is about 9 miles away from its existing location. When they originally began their charter, they weren't able to find a site close to the target area and the student population, and so this allows them to move into their targeted area and increase the size of their facility, which is needed. And so that's before us for approval, a 9-mile move for Raleigh Oak Charter School, which has a Waldorf classical-based curriculum. EICS 2 are the 2023 charter school expansion requests. And so the expansion requests that we have before us at this for this year are Clover Garden, and they have a request for 89 students. Unity Classical is before us with a request to increase by 52 students. And then we had a request by Asheville Peak Academy to expand 2 grade levels this coming academic year, adding 4th and 5th grade, and then the request to expand to 6th grade in the following academic year in 2024. EICS 3 is the 2023 charter school renewal applications. With this discussion, I want to offer, again, 2 words of thanks. First, to the Charter School Advisory Board for the process for which they vetted all of the applications and interviewed the applicants. There were originally 38 applications for renewal. I mentioned yesterday during my comments that 3 of those have been pulled from this month's agenda and will be back before us next month. And those 3 are Langtree Charter Academy, which was before us for a 10-year renewal, Westlake Preparatory Academy, that was before us for a 7-year renewal, and Cabarrus Charter Academy, that was before us for a 3-year renewal. Due to some unresolved issues regarding compliance with federal special education laws, they will be reviewed again by the Charter School Advisory Board and will come back to us at our May meeting. So that leaves us with several schools that have been recommended for a 10-year renewal. I'll read those into the record again just for clarification. Apprentice Academy of North Carolina, Aristotle Prep Academy, Ascend Leadership Academy, Bonnie Cone Classical, Cabarrus Charter Academy, which has been pulled, so that one's off the list, Carolina Charter Academy, Classical Charter Schools of Wilmington, excuse me, this is where I said, excuse me for the list. Okay, let me restart. My apologies. The schools that are before us for the 10-year renewal are Tiller School, Willow Oak Montessori, Pinnacle Classical Academy, North Carolina Leadership Charter, Falls Lake Academy, Oxford Prep, Summerfield Charter Academy, Queens Grant Community, Island Montessori, the Expedition School, URE Charter Academy, Southeastern Academy, and Longleaf School of the Arts. In order to make voting a little bit easier, are there any questions about the schools that are before us for a 10-year renewal? Vice Chair Duncan.
This is intended to make voting easier, but I would feel remiss if I did not say I'm bothered that, I will vote for this, but I'm bothered that with respect to one of the schools on there, it has not met growth for three straight years. It's moved to low-performing status. It does meet the requirements as are set out in the statute for 10-year renewal, but I'm disappointed that we don't have the flexibility to perhaps put it on a little shorter renewal time. It's not against the school. I hope the school will do well, but 10 years is a long time.
Yes, sir.
That's it.
Noted. Any other comments? Okay, I'm hoping that we can include the 7-year renewals in the same motion. And so the 7-year renewals for this year are Ascend Leadership Academy, Bonnie Cone Classical Academy, East Voyager Academy of Charlotte, Jackson Day School. Are there any questions about the 7-year renewal proposals? Mr. Chair.
I hate to do this, but just consistent with my comments, I will vote for this as well. I have the same concerns about two of the schools in the 7-year bracket, and believe a renewal of a lesser period of time would have been more desirable to give them the chance to strengthen their school.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Any other comments? So, Mr. Vice Chair, what I'd like to do in the first proposal with EICS 3 is to make the recommendation for approval of all the schools on the 10-year and the 7-year renewal. So that will be motion number 1 under EICS 3. We had quite a discussion about the schools that are on the list for the 3-year charter renewal. Let me read those for us. Paul R. Brown, Thomas Academy, Davidson Charter Academy, the Institute of Developing Young Leaders, the Experiential School of Greensboro, Aristotle Prep, Veritas Community School, Moore Montessori, Rocky Mount Prep, Classical Charter Schools of Wilmington, Monroe Charter Academy, Apprentice Academy of North Carolina, Carolina Charter School, and Raleigh Oak Charter School. So there were lots of concerns. We discussed yesterday that the schools on this list are in the, I said flashing yellow, but it's really flashing red. Main concerns are combined around 2 issues. One is academic performance, and the second on financial and compliance, federal and state compliance issues with special children populations. And so upon discussion with fellow board members, we have decided to divide that list of 3-year charter renewals, and we are separating out 4 of those schools. Those 4 schools are Monroe Charter Academy, Paul R. Brown Leadership Academy, Rocky Mount Preparatory Academy, and Apprentice Academy High School of North Carolina. So those 4 schools are going to have a separate set of recommendations. Mr. Chair, what I would do for this list is all of the other schools except Monroe Charter, Paul R. Brown Leadership, Rocky Mount Prep, and Apprentice Academy High School, I'm recommending for a 3-year renewal. Are there any questions about except the 4 schools that I've just mentioned? Okay, so the second motion will be to approve all of the schools with the exception of the 4 that we're going to list here. Okay, that brings me to the third motion. In reviewing the data and the conversations that were held by the Charter School Advisory Board with regard to Monroe Charter Academy, Paul R. Brown Leadership, Rocky Mount Preparatory School, and Apprentice Academy High School of North Carolina, I'm going to move that we approve a 3-year renewal with the following stipulations, divided into 4 categories. First stipulation for all of these schools regarding school improvement plans. Each of these schools must submit to the Charter School Office by July the 31st of 2023 a 3-year plan designed to improve instruction at the school and address all other deficiencies that have been cited by the Charter School Office at that school during the last 2 academic years. Also regarding school improvement, The plan must include specific research-based strategies that are designed and proven to be effective in increasing instructional outcomes. Number 3, the plan must be presented to the Charter School Advisory Board for consideration and approval at its August 2023 meeting. If the Charter School Advisory Board does not find that the submitted plan is likely to result in improved academic outcomes for students, it will make recommendations for changes that must be included in the plan in order to obtain CSAB's approval. Alternatively, the Charter School Advisory Board may determine what changes need to be made to the plan and direct that they may be made. The 5th condition under school improvement is that each school must implement with fidelity the improvement plan approved by CSAB, or it will not be eligible for a further charter. That's category 1. Category 2, training. Each academic year of its 3-year charter, all members of the school's board of directors and its school leadership team, including the school director and school principal, must participate in at least 5 leadership or instructional practice training modules or sessions offered or recommended by the Office of Charter Schools, or CSAB. All teachers working at the school must receive meaningful training by an experienced educational professional on how to improve instructional outcome for students. Category 3, academic outcomes. The schools must each meet or exceed academic growth standards for at least 2 of the 3 academic years prior to reconsideration of its charter in 3 years. And number 4, compliance with financial and legal requirements. During the next 3 years of its charter, each of these schools must not have any financial compliance warnings and must comply with all legal requirements in its delivery of educational services, including compliance with federal exceptional children's laws and regulations. I hope the message is received loud and clear that we're giving you every opportunity to be successful. And there are structures and processes and an entire staff of individuals that work for the Office of Charter Schools, as well as a host of advisors that serve on the Charter School Advisory Board that are invested in the success of these 4 schools. Furthermore, the schools that are not on this list that are also up for a 3-year renewal, we highly suggest that you take a look at these stipulations. While they are not upon you in writing, these guardrails are placed upon you only to help make sure that when you are before us again for another charter renewal, that we will with ease and with confidence give you a 10-year charter renewal, because you will have met the specifications. So, Mr. Chair, the 4th motion will be to approve 3-year renewal for Monroe, Paul R. Brown, Rocky Mount Prep, and Apprentice Academy with the stipulations that have been outlined here today.
Thank you. Let me clarify one thing, Ms. White. I had that as the 3rd motion.
I'm sorry, excuse me. It was originally 4 before I lumped the 10 and the 7 together.
Very good.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. And then we had 2 schools discussed yesterday before us for non-renewal. I want to discuss both of those separately. The first one is Eastside Stream Academy. And that motion is going to be to approve the February 6, 2023 recommendation from the Charter School Advisory Board that the charter for Eastside Stream Academy not be renewed for the following reasons. 1, the school failed to meet the requirements for student performance contained in the school's charter. 2, the charter school is continually low performing and has been a low performing school for all of the years of its operation, which is almost 10 years, and has only met growth for one of the last 3 academic years. 3, the academic performance of the school is greater than 5 percentage points lower than that of the Charlotte Meck School District and the public school district in which the charter school is located. And 4, the school has failed to meet generally accepted standards of fiscal management, and it has a consistent history of being placed on financial non-compliance. I'm also going to move that the state board decline to authorize assumption of East Side Stream's charter by other entities on the grounds that there's not sufficient time for an effective assumption process to be followed prior to the end of East Side Stream's charter on June 30th, 2023. And this follows General Statute 115C-281.95 and 16 NCAC OCG.0524. The next school before us for non-renewal, and Mr. Chair, I know that we will need to separate those two schools, and so we'll vote on those separately. East Side Stream will be the fourth out of this this agenda item, and the fifth will be the non-renewal of Seca Arts School of the Arts and Technology. And so this motion will say, I move to approve the February the 6th, 2023 recommendation from the Charter School Advisory Board that the charter for Zeca School of the Arts and Technology not be renewed for the following reasons as permitted by North Carolina General Statute 115C-218.6, 115C-218.94, and 115C-218.95. The school failed to meet the requirements for student performance contained in the school's charter. The charter school is a continually low-performing school and has been a low-performing school for all of the years of its operation, which is almost 10 years, and has only met growth for 2 of the last 3 academic years. The academic performance of the school is greater than 5 percentage points lower than that of the Onslow County School District, the public school district in which the charter school is located. Do we have questions about the motions that have been discussed during this agenda item today? Okay, let me cover the rest of the work done by the EICS committee yesterday. In our discussion, we had EICS 4, so the North Carolina Virtual Academy made a request to expand its enrollment for the upcoming year. The enrollment would include an additional 500 students. In EICS 5, United Community School amended its mission statement. It came before CSAB with new wording for its mission statement, and now is before us to approve that mission statement. EICS 6, Ms. Julie Garber brought restart applications from both Johnson County Public Schools and Craven County Schools, bringing the total number of restart schools in the state to over 150. And then finally, EICS 7 were the 2 remaining charter school renewal applications that are before us for discussion this month. They'll be back for a vote next month. Next Generation Academy and Invest Collegiate Transform. If you'll remember, colleagues, I read statements into the record yesterday about a document, 12-page document that the board received on March 20th. It was a memo to the State Board of Education arguing why the charter should be renewed, and presented new information that had not previously been shared with the Charter School Advisory Board. And our recommendation is that because of the integrity of the charter school renewal process, that new information that's received after the Charter School Advisory Board has made its decision only be considered to the extent that the information that was presented had also been previously considered by the Charter School Advisory Board. So, Mr. Chair, that includes my lengthy review of the work we did yesterday.
Thank you for that complete and detailed work.
I have just a question about the 2 schools not up for renewal. Are those schools, are they making any kind of impact in their community at all?
We had a great discussion about that yesterday, and so one of the concerns with East Side Stream is not only its lack of academic performance, but also significant financial and federal reporting requirements that have fallen far short. So that one sort of is a different conversation entirely. Sure. Our conversation around Zeca, we heard a passionate response from Mr. Keenan, and this school is in Onslow County and serves a population of students that pretty much have every barrier to success that a student or family could have, and the board is very torn over what to do about this school. And the conversation that we found ourselves having is that there's been tremendous social and emotional impact. The school and the climate of the school is a safe, warm, welcoming, inviting, protective space for those students.
Right.
But the lack of academic movement over the 10 years is what has given the board's pause about giving them years, and then also that was presented by Ms. Cook and Ms. Turner, is that the school was intentionally given the chance to put before those decision makers a strong academic plan and a strong school improvement plan, and that there was a failure to do so as reviewed by the people who serve on the Charter School Advisory Board, who are indeed school leaders themselves. We never take shutting a school down lightly, and we may be at different places today, but they're off the charts in the social emotional.
Well, I would just offer, that I would gather that these students probably have been facing generational poverty, if I'm not mistaken.
If I may, I'm sure I'm gonna have an opportunity when that motion hits the floor that we and I can give you more detail.
Yeah.
I have a few little words to say, few words.
The school's been open, 10 years?
Yes, sir.
We're talking about 10 years faced with generational poverty. I mean, if they're working towards even having a space in that community where these folks feel safe, and have a place where they can go, I mean, there's an awful lot to overcome in a lot of these communities when we're talking about generational poverty and the problems that go with it. I think if this school has started on that track in 10 years and turned that around and given them a little bit of hope, I don't know if I kind of got a problem with pulling the rug out underneath them after 10 years compared with everything they've faced in their history. So I'm not, I'm really torn about it. I certainly understand about not having that academic growth. It's hard to have academic growth when you're dealing with people who have dealt with poverty on a cycle. I mean, just over and over again. In some of these counties, we know, some of these poorer counties, they've dealt with it for decades, if not for their entire histories. So if they do have that community outreach is there, pulling up the roots of a small tree might not be the best thing. I'm just saying, I don't know, I completely understand the reasons for not wanting to renew, but I really got to give strong consideration to the fact that we might be uprooting a tree that has the potential to grow. I'd be remiss if I didn't say that. So,
thank you. So, Mr. Keenan, I would suggest to you that now's the time to go ahead and the floor is open for discussion because we haven't closed out our committee work. If you want to go ahead and speak about Zecca, I would invite you to do so at this time.
I will make it brief. Lieutenant Governor, I will not reiterate what I said yesterday. I'm going to get to the nuts and bolts of what I'm trying to say again. And first of all, I mean this sincerely, that I appreciate the way. I'm sorry. I said, first of all, I'd like to start out saying that I appreciate all of the attention that was given yesterday when you allowed me to talk. I think I went more than 5 minutes. I warned you on that. So, but I felt whatever I said was heard. And sometimes you can get that feeling that, hey, you're just talking and nobody really listening. But for some of the responses that I got after I spoke by this board, there was no doubt in my mind that you knew that I was expressing how I really felt and what I saw. And so I will not reiterate what I said yesterday, but I want to give a couple points before I guess in court, call my closing argument, my last chance to the jury. So I've got my last chance coming for you. Because after this, I can't come back anymore.
And he doesn't lose many cases, so this will be good.
I want to keep it that way. Let me go back. Okay. Let me sincerely. As Lieutenant Governor has mentioned,
And Lieutenant Governor, very quickly, that is what we're dealing with. And when you look at the minutes from the advisory committee, and again, I took my hat off to the advisory committee. I read everything, and it's a hard job. And that's why we stayed here late last night trying to understand what's best for all these schools, particularly low performance, just not ZECA, but all of them. And it's hard to really say what's right and what's wrong, because all kids, schools are different. But we've got to find a shoe that fits ZECA. That's the shoes we're looking for, what fit their student feet. So I want to very quickly let you know what kind of students are there. As I said before yesterday, they're, you know, some are homeless, some of them grandmamas, some of them, you know, correct. But there's 12 in kindergarten, there's 13 in first grade, there's 15 in the second grade, there's 17 in the third grade, there's 7 in the fourth grade, there's 6 in the fifth grade, there's 7 in the sixth grade, and the 8th in the seventh grade, and there's 13 in the 8th grade. Those are the students they're dealing with. And the question is, if we close the school down, where do they go? They got two options. They go back to a low performance school, or they go to the streets of Onlow County and walk around out of school. So we all know, if we're honest, and we all are honest, that if we put them back in the school they don't want to be, they're not going to want to learn. And when they get old enough, they're going to leave the school. That's just what we know for those type kids with those handicaps. And so that's a deep question. What do you do when you close it down? Have we put it better for them? My answer is no, because the schools that they're going to are both low performance. They'll be going to either Northwood Park Middle, or they'll be going to Clyde Elementary. And according to online, they're both low performance. But one thing I would say that's urgent and important, from what I read, they had 9% attendance. That means their parents want them there. And I thought this is what it was all about. I thought school options was about what we want. We are supposed to make sure they get the best, but we got to listen to the parents too. And as I told you before, when I went the other night, they were there. Respectful, but they were hurting, they were telling me. But I'm saying 9%, think about that. Now I read what Brown was saying, when that goes, we'll get there as 96%. So I will go, when I say our, I mean our, because I'm advocating for them. So I'm listening to the parents, 90%. And I say again, and I'm sure on the motion later, I just said, you know, I will address something later, but I just want those out that, again, just reiterate what Lieutenant Governor said. I got one more minute, I know. Madam Sheriff, I remember you kept saying in the ballot point, you listened to the advisory committee, I think you got emails overnight, like, we told them to bring this. We asked them, not told, we asked them, please bring some data. You said that they would never, ever get it right. And they tried, and I commend them, and I understand what you're saying. But in life sometimes, it's not always, it takes even a child, sometimes it takes a certain person to tell them something so they can understand. Not that they understand, but to do what they need to do. So all I'm asking this board is, down the road, consider that we're got to make a decision today. Let us make some conditions, let us make some requirements that they must understand. Advisory board, sure, they should have complied, but we got a chance now, it's a new day. And I'm asking us to really think about put conditions so that they understand they need to do better. They must do better. If those conditions are not met, then we've done all we can. And my last thing I'm gonna say is that it's like in court, like probation. I have a client that come before the judge. The judge got the option to send him to prison or send him or keep him on probation. But the judge leave him on probation. You know what I tell my client? I said, I've done all I can do for you. Now it's up to you what you want to do. Stay out or you go to prison. So that's what I'm asking this board to do. Tell ZECA, this is your last chance. You either get it right or you close down. That's all I have to ask.
Thank you very much, Mr. King. Any other comments? Okay, then.
Those remarks were well received.
Well received.
Those are remarks.
Okay.
Well, thank you again for leading a good discussion. Thank you for the participation of all involved. I'm often proud to be privileged to be a member of this board, and some of these kinds of discussions on difficult issues in the highly civil, highly professional, highly thoughtful manner in which they've addressed is a real gift in life for me. And I thank everyone for that. All right, we now move to our next item, which is the Healthy Responsible Students Committee led by
Your good friend?
between attorney, reverend, and my good friend, Reggie.
The Reverend got a good title now.
I want to, I just want to be a school board member, that's all. Trying to do good, that's all.
Well, you got 37 years of that, so you got that title too.
Thank you, but let me drink my water right quick. All right. If I may, I'm Reginald Keenan. I'm the chair along with the HRS committee, along with very dear friends, I always say, and I always say it every day, is Alan Duncan. Also now we have a great Wendell Hall on our committee because we're dealing with the North Carolina High School Association issues. And so yesterday we had 2 for new business and we had 1 for action. And on the first action, new business, we had the appeal board notice of appeal forms. And our attorney, Allison Schaefer, went to details about the appeals we've had concerning the students and athletic issues. And she presented a form that we think will meet all legal requirements to make sure the appeal is done properly, notifying all the interested party. And so she also mentioned that we have to, in the future, work on some rules and as far as eligibility, and as going forth, we continue to deal with the rules that we have to comply according to the statute. And she did a very good job explaining that to us. And then on the second new business item, we had the clean classrooms for Carolina kids. That's the expansion for clean water for Carolina kids program. And we had Dr. Lynn Hardy came first, but she had 2 great presenters. We had Mr. Ed Norman, and then we had Ms. Jennifer Redmond. And as we all know, back in 2021, we were fortunate to get $150 million from federal government for pandemic issues, and we were able to, legislate to allow the $150 million for us to expand the work of the NC Department of Health and Human Services Childhood Lead Poisoning Prevention and Asbestos and Lead-Based Paint Program, partner with RTI International. And of course, the objective of that whole matter is to identify lead and asbestos hazards and provide abatement funding for child care facilities in public schools across North Carolina from spring of 2023 until 2026. And also, we need to mention that the program is modeled after the Clean Water for Carolina Kids program that has already tested all the child care centers for lead in the water. That's already been done. And that's sort of the model that we're going from. But during that conversation, it was a good explanation as to what you got to do, educate the administrators in the schools as to what you look for, how you can get, how they get involved for the RTI International for inspections on site, and tell them how to turn in the water samples and things like that. So I want to get in detail all about that, but I just want to be aware of the objective and that they are on the move, and there's a lot of work to be done for the better way of our children. And then the last item that we dealt with was action item that was amendment to the ADVS policy 009, the whole child NC policy, and that was basically more of a amendment to reflect the proposed members' roles. So nothing major done, and of course Dr. Essick, who's always on top of her game, presented and well done. And with that, Mr. Chair, Vice Chair, that's all I have to present to the board this morning.
Thank you. Are there any questions on all those items for Mr. Keenan? Not hearing any. We will now move to the Government and Community Affairs Committee, where Mr. Wendell Hall will present for us.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Once again, I'm Wendell Hall, Chair of the Government and Community Affairs Committee, along with Jill Canitz. Yesterday, we had the pleasure of hearing from Mr. Falkenberry, Director for the Government and Community Affairs Division, concerning the recent legislation, recent acts, bills, so forth, that is before the General Assembly as we sit here today to decide upon. It was a lengthy discussion yesterday, Mr. Chairman. There was a lot of questions that the board members had, and Mr. Falconberry, along with the state superintendent, answered them to their best. As we all know, the budget has not been approved. This is only their House version that we're talking about now. It's moving quickly, though, from what we hear from Mr. Falconberry. Along with, now we have the governor's proposal out, we have the House proposal out, and of course the next group will be the Senate, who will present. And then of course, if there are any discrepancies between the three, they will get together as conferees and try to come up with a state budget for the state of North Carolina. It looks like June is going to be a good date. Look like everybody's on target, that we will have a budget hopefully before July 1 as we move forward. We do encourage all to avail themselves of the many bills that's coming down the pike. You can go online, you can read about them, you can ask your local legislators about them, and give input. These bills, when they become law, will affect all of us as we try to serve the greatest population of individuals we know, and that's our children. The first thing we started with yesterday, and I will be brief, there's a lot of bills we went over. I'm not going to go over all them. I'm not going to repeat what Mr. Falconberry said item by item, along with the state superintendent, but I would only outline a few bills that we might want to have interest in. The first one, of course, we all know it's not a bill, but it was legislation that the House came up with, teacher pay. This first item, teacher pay, along with assistant principals and principals pay. We can all look at that and see where it will move us as far as the Southeast is concerned. But just not only that to be honest with our teachers and everyone saying we value you. We value your time, your efforts that you put in educating the future of this great state. We also talked about House Bill 11, which dealt with the deaf and the blind issue and dealing with the Board of Trustees there. We talked about House Bill 832. Now, this deals with the school nurse issue. As you well know, we're asking for additional resources to hire a school nurse to get them into the pipeline, school nurses, to get them into the pipeline. I think they reduced it down to 2 years worth of actual experience in order to become a school nurse. That is House Bill 382. I ask that you do avail yourself to that particular bill. Licensure issues for our principals, House Bill 432. It's a little bit different. If we look at bringing principals, licensure issues, the one thing that caught my attention was that now there's a possibility that the principal's licensure will not require an exam. And that's something we need to be aware of as we move forward and getting those school administrators in place. Nothing replaces an effective principal in a school. If an effective principal in a school, then you're going to have an effective school. If it's the opposite, that's what we're going to get, is the opposite of being effective. We also talked about the Standard Course of Study Commission. This came out of the House Budget Affairs also, along with the Charter School Review Board. That's a little bit different than what we experience now. To do avail yourself to that particular item on the House side. Very important, House Bill 142. That's in the Senate side that deals with the Protect Our Students Act. Now, we all know how important that is. We talked about it recently. We talked about this and that, but sometimes kids are mistreated by the very people that we put in the classroom before them. Mistreated in a way that is non-conforming to standards of today or even society of the past. And those penalties have to be severe enough to get the attention of some of these people who don't know where their hands belong at times. That is about the girth of what I wanted to talk about today. But there were many other, Mr. Chairman and fellow board members, you were here with me. There were many other bills that we talked about. If anyone has any concerns or discussions at this point in time, please present them now, and I'll get on the telephone and call Mr. Fortenberry, or I'll have the state superintendent to help us with some of the explanation. Anyone? I see none, Mr. Chairman, so I will turn the floor back over to you. The court is now at your disposal.
Thank you, Mr. Hall. I'm going to pass the gavel then to Dr. Olivia Oxendine, who leads our Educator Standards and Practices Committee, and ask for her report.
I am Olivia Oxendine, and I have the opportunity of chairing the Educator Standards and Practice Committee, and joining me in that responsibility is Ms. Amy White. The first item is an action item, ESMP 1, presented yesterday by Dr. Seiberg. Coming to this board is a request discussed last month, and we're going to act on it today, from the Blue Ridge Community College and Wayne Community College to receive authorization to operate as an EPP in our state. So we want to welcome these two institutions, these two campuses, to the family of EPPs across North Carolina. This is made possible through General Statute 115C 269-10, and also by way of a framework, design framework established by the Department of Community Colleges last spring, came to this board in June, and we approved that framework. So we have two ways that this happens: through general statute and by way of a Department of Community College framework, which we now endorse. We also have several, in fact, discussion items in ESP2. This is the request from additional community colleges to operate as EPPs in North Carolina. So it's discussion yesterday. It is going to be acted on next month in our May meeting, and these campuses are Alamance, Central Piedmont, Fayetteville Technical Community College, McDowell Technical, Western Piedmont Community Colleges. Again, the mechanism is the General Statute 115C 26910, and that framework that the Department of Community Colleges approved last spring, last spring, we approved in June. We also have coming back next month for approval, presented yesterday by Dr. Seiberg, another request to operate as an EPP, and this is one of our districts, our local districts. Winston-Salem Forsyth is seeking authorization by this board, initial authorization to operate as an EPP. Dr. Seiberg did explain there's a slight difference in this approval process, simply because CAPE gets involved and does a peer review of the application. And CAPE is one of our two national accreditors. The other one is AQUAP. So CAPE was very involved in reviewing the application, endorsing the application, so we can feel confident that this is going to be, we hope, a high-flying EPP in North Carolina. Next month, we will act on ESMP 3. ESMP 4 was presented by Lee O'Neill, and this is just a series of licensure revisions in the area of career technical education. You do have, if you have an interest in more detail around those revisions, you have a nice summary of, I think, 20 revisions that Ms. O'Neill laid out for us, so you can go to that document and read those specific revisions. I just always have to say, thanks to CTE. They do hard work, and they spend a lot, they come before us so many times during the course of the year with licensure revisions, so that should tell us that they're paying attention to licensure, and they're listening to the stakeholders in the field with their recommendations. ESMP 5 was a really good presentation, discussion item, action next month. This was a really good presentation. Introduced Ms. Myra Best, Executive Director of DigiLearn, introduced two additional speakers who joined us virtually, Doctors Bill McDermott and Barnett Berry. There was a third presenter, but she was unable to join us. Dr. Mary Dean Behringer is part of probably the think tank around micro-credentials, We do have the privilege of having two members of our staff, Dr. Tom Tomberlin and Dr. Ashley McBride, designated as the point people by Superintendent Truitt to work very closely with the committee around micro-credentials. That work is very in-depth. It is ongoing. Take a look at the report again if you want to know what is involved, because it's very involved. There is a process whereby quality standards have to be validated. We didn't hear much at all about the quality assurance standards that will be used to determine the validity of these micro-credentials. But that work in and of itself is going to be time-consuming. So a lot to be done in the world of micro-credentials, and we're so happy that we have this initiative ready to go for us, or getting ready to go, I should say, because we hear so much about micro-credentials with the pathways to excellence. So I just think it's a real golden opportunity. I want to say that in the PowerPoint presentation that was made yesterday, presented yesterday, micro-credentials, not like the typical professional development, the workshop that is presented at 3:30 in the afternoon and concludes about 5 o'clock, and teachers are tired, exhausted, ready to go home, do other things. It's not that kind of world. Micro-credentials is deep, it's lasting, it's energizing, and it's true professional growth. So that is the difference in what we think of as professional development. Earning CEUs and micro-credential approach. I think I have covered it all. Vice Chair Duncan.
Thank you, Dr. Oxendine. Any questions for Dr. Oxendine?
Questions, I'm sorry. Questions? Thank you.
Not seeing any, we'll move on to the Business Systems Operation Committee, the BizOp Committee, along with Wendell Hall. We lead that committee, and we discussed a number of items yesterday with the help of staff leading us through those. BizOp 1, 2, and 3 are actions on first read. BizOp 1 is approval of contracts over $500,000. We had 6 of those. Dr. Rob Dietrich presented the first 3. First one is contract extension with digital literacy solution, learning.com. This is the last option year on that particular contract, and it will be reviewed carefully and looked at for bidding next year in terms of the services that are provided. Second item or contract was a contract extension with ISKME. This is the Open Ed North Carolina materials. The reference made by Dr. Dietrich is the materials on there are just awesome. So that was nice to have in the contract report. We don't usually get just awesome in our reports. And it's very collaborative for teachers. It's just been a very, very, very useful resource. Our third item reported on by Dr. Dietrich was contract with SchoolNet. This is an $11.2 million contract on a 2-year extension. The charges are $1 per ADM on usage. It's important to note that that $11.2 million is an up to number, because you don't know what your usage is going to be exactly, but you know what your charge per student will be. Then we moved to the contract with SAS Institute, Amendment 11, for the AS400 Ed Cloud hosting. All of us will be thrilled not to have to look at a contract for continued AS400 Ed Cloud hosting, but we do need to do it, and we will need to do it for a few more years, most likely. And so this is a 1-year contract, $1.628 million. The indication is SAS will phase out of this hosting process, and so this will be out for bid. SAS has a 10% increase on the cost plus hours for the migration process as the charge this year, but has agreed that they would stay on to assist with the migration process if we find a new vendor over the course of the time, over the course of the next year. The fifth item is a contract with North Carolina State University for technical outreach for public school systems, or TOPS. This is a way of saying it's 5 years for the development of our statewide assessment and tests. So this is a $47.1 million contract. It runs through June 30th of 2028. This is a contract, obviously, that the board has had of long standing in light of the accountability and assessment testing that has been done over a long period of time now in our state. And finally, our last contract is with North Carolina State University Friday Institute. It's for cyber security. Dr. Vanessa Rend, if I neglect to say, Dr. Tammy Howard presented the statewide assessment and test contract. Dr. Vanessa Rend presented this task order, which is for tech research on the research side on cybersecurity issues. It's also intended to create a pipeline for new employees with the necessary expertise in cybersecurity, which is has been a challenge and is a further developing challenge. And so having a pipeline of expertise developed is very important, not just the system, but for the state. So those are our 6 contracts. BizOp 2 is the National School Lunch Program for Equipment Assistance Grants. Dr. Lynn Harvey reported on that. That's a $1.9 million grant. There were $2.4 million of requests for the grant or applications. And so we're able to service basically 80% of those grant requests. And this is a grant every year that comes out and offers the opportunity for systems to get new kitchen equipment. And that's a very needed thing in a lot of the systems. So it's very helpful. Very helpful grant, and we have come to enjoy the month of the year when we receive that grant, and I know our local superintendents and systems do as well. BizOp 3, the last of our action on first read items, is a report to the North Carolina General Assembly on the Education and Workforce Innovation Commission Annual Report, or EWIC. Jacqueline Wyatt, who's our career readiness specialist in career and technical education, provided a very good and thorough report on that. She did it in under 5 minutes, so she was very concise and to the point, and pointing out the work that was being done and the different roles that are being fulfilled with this, the importance of the work and the challenges of the work and the challenges of putting the money to the best possible uses. So that was a very helpful report, and our item here is to approve that report for submission to the General Assembly. Our action items are BizOp 4 and 5. BizOp 4 is the rules update, which is the State Board's approval of the proposed temporary rule 16 NCAC 06G.0601, remote academies, hardware and software fees. This is a rule that we're taking through the Rules Commission that will allow districts to make the decision locally. If they want to charge for damage and or lost devices, this will enable them to be able to do so. And so it's not required that a district do so, but it gives, if the district chooses to do so, it gives them the ability to do so under the Rules Commission. Melissa Davis presented on that item, and it provided a previous month a more substantial report. BizOp 5 is again an item Jennifer Bennett had reported last month as a discussion item to us. This is the new policy amendment for professional certification of North Carolina finance officers. And a lot of work was put in that we all very much appreciate. We've talked about this issue for a couple of years because it's been a pressing issue. And it elevates the status of the financial officer. It sets out more clearly what the requirements will be in order to meet this position in the districts, and it also elevates the compensation levels that a finance officer could be paid. And so the effort there is to hear the districts have been saying it's a real challenge to keep high-quality finance officers, and it is an integral part of the success of our operation. So it's very important that we address this, and we're going to follow this closely, but very hopeful that this will make a real difference in terms of the ability to help our districts with a high-level finance officer. Which brings us to our consent items, brings us to our discussion item, which is a report that's actually due April 15th to North Carolina General Assembly on supplemental funds for teacher compensation. We're getting an extension on that till May 15th. Presenter was Alexis Schaus, our Chief Financial Officer, and in that she reviewed what's in the report. And this goes to how the $100 million in bonuses was paid by each of the districts that received those funds. And what the low pay, the high pay, and the medium was in terms of what was provided from the General Assembly for that funding. As Ms. Schaus pointed out, now the General Assembly has $170 million for the coming year. One of the things to report on was any supplanting issues that may have occurred. That's still being reviewed, and one of the reasons the report's not fully completed is the work's still being undertaken on any supplanting issues or concerns. To the extent there are any, the penalty that's set out right now is that you would not receive anything in the following year. There's not an ability to pay it back, or pay back, if you will, what you may have supplanted this year. There is a clause in some legislation, in the budget legislation, I believe, that would allow that to be able to pay back what you may have supplanted this year, so you can be eligible for next year's, what your share would be of the $170 million. This is important money for a lot of our districts in terms of trying to attract educators there. So we really appreciate the attention that's been given by Ms. Schaus and her staff, and look forward to a follow-up report on this item next month. Then we move to 2 consent items. Biz Op 7 was the Task Force for Safer Schools membership, and Dr. Maria Petrie Martin brought to the board the nominations of Ms. Floyd, Dr. Green, and Dr. Bridges, so people that we're with as we speak, and so we can all be very comfortable about those nominations and excited to have them on this important task force. And if there was any question about how important it is, we had a very significant discussion on this very issue both yesterday and today. That moves us to Biz Op 8, which is certification of finance officers, and I'm going to say the good karma from the proposal we have brings us 5 new chief financial officers for our certification. Brunswick County, Cleveland County, Columbus County, Northampton County, and Wake County. The information on all these candidates who are qualified and have been fully vetted has been before you in your materials, so this is a consent item, Biz Op 8. We also had an opportunity to review all executed and planned contracts, and had an opportunity to review the monthly budget report as part of our report. And that was all Biz Op, unless there's any questions. All right, we now move then to the chairman's reports and comments. And before we start on the weighty matters of voting, I'm going to say that we're going to hear a special presentation briefly. As I indicated to you, it turned out I knew the author of this very moving piece, and so do you. So I'm going to call on Leah Carper to share it with us.
I am grateful for this opportunity to share a very personal story from my life. This was published about a month ago in the Greensboro News Record. Some of my earliest memories are of my single divorced mom of 5 working multiple jobs. I remember falling asleep to the sound of her word processor printing out medical transcripts she typed for local doctors. I remember the sick, sweet smell of the lotion she rubbed onto her aching feet after pulling a full day of selling perfume at the mall. I remember listening to her verbally study her nursing class notes at all hours so she could one day fully provide her family with a healthy and happy life. One day my brother came home from school with a bill for lunch. He forgot to bring the lunch my mom packed. And the school counselor informed my mom that our family qualified for no-cost meals at school. My 4 brothers and I enjoyed eating breakfast and lunch in the cafeteria, and I was grateful that it took a burden off my mother. Eventually, my mom's hard work culminated in us no longer qualifying for free meals at school, but instead reduced. So each day, my mom thoughtfully stacked 1 quarter, 1 dime, and 1 nickel on the kitchen table for each of us, enough to cover the cost of our reduced price lunch. As an insecure 9th grader, terrified that my peers would discover that I qualified and paid for reduced cost meals, I carried my 3 coins, my shame, in my pocket every day and stood in the lunch line squeezing my coins as tightly as I could. I didn't want to lose them, but more importantly, I didn't want my peers to discover the truth about me. I was poor. One day, unfortunately, in my discreet handoff, I missed the cashier's hand and my 40 cents fell to the ground. Panicked, I corralled my 3 coins and swiftly surrendered them to the cashier, but not before the boy behind me in the lunch line noticed and loudly declared that I hadn't paid enough for my food. Seeing the desperation in my eyes, the compassionate school nutrition professional returned all 3 coins to my hand and quickly replied, "No, actually, Leah gave me too much money. Here's your change." And she pretended the money I handed her was my change. She did not hesitate to rescue me. A child standing hungry before her with no power to change her situation while hungering daily for that exact change. That day, this school nutrition professional became one of my heroes. She showed me kindness, which came so naturally to her. An educator who sees children from all walks of life standing hungry before her day after day, year after year. She knows the hungry students. She knows the students who feel shame daily. And even 20 years later, her small act still inspires me to look for ways to rescue the students in my classroom every day. As an adult, I recognize that there is no shame in being poor. I'm grateful for my upbringing and the example my mom set for working hard and valuing education, which helped me realize my potential to become a teacher. However, I also recognize that I was a teenager years ago, and being a teenager is hard enough without enduring burdens like feeling inferior to our peers daily while just trying to get fed. We can eliminate this specific burden. In North Carolina, our policymakers can be rescuers this session, including no-cost meals for all in the state budget, regardless of a student's background. They can exhibit grace and kindness while reaping the benefits of a focused student body. By providing school meals for all at no cost to families, we will feed hungry children and help them reach their greatest potential. Hungry students are distracted students. They're more likely to act out in class, fall asleep, be quick to feel anger, shut down, and not give 100%. Hungry students need help to actualize their potential. We must feed their bodies so we can feed their minds. Think about all the students who right now are sitting in North Carolina classrooms hungry for change, and ask yourself if you can be a rescuer. After all, one of those students might become a North Carolina Teacher of the Year. I appreciate the opportunity to share part of my story with all of you today.
Thank you for sharing. It was not till the last sentence of that piece that I realized I in fact knew, as you did, the author. Lieutenant Governor.
Yeah, this is something I've been raked over the coals by more than a few conservatives on that issue. I just looked it up to make sure I get the numbers right, but I think there's about 30,000 prisoners in this state. It's about 1.5 million K through 12 students, correct? I've heard stories of kids going through the lunch line with their trays, getting to the end, not having enough, quote, money on their accounts, and the food being thrown in the trash can. How many times has that ever happened to a prisoner in our prisons? Because those prisons have advocates that would come in and would raise holy Hades. I don't understand why in the world we live in a society where we compel students, children, to go to school. And somehow we can't find enough money to feed them. It doesn't make any sense. Google found a way to feed their employees gourmet lunches. How come the government can't figure out a way to feed these children sandwiches and pizzas? I mean, it doesn't make any sense. It's never made any sense to me that we compel these students to go to school, and many of them, that is the only place they will get a meal. I've seen that up close and personal. I ran a daycare center and knew that some of the students that came to me, that was the only place they were going to eat. They were not going to eat at home. It's just, to me, it's just a common sense issue. It's just another one of those things where, quite frankly, we need to do better. We absolutely need to do better, and I agree with you wholeheartedly. We should send these kids off to school, and they shouldn't have to worry about not forgetting their lunch money on the counter, because that money should already be there, and it's in there already. It's just a matter of whether or not we're willing to make that investment.
Thank you. Dr. Oxendine.
Just a minute. That is moving. So let me get my thoughts together here. You've heard me say it. We don't charge kids 30 cents, 50 cents, $1.50 to get on a school bus. It happens. It's not discussed. We do. We talk about the ride, cat fuel price. But my point is, we do not question cost charging parents to put kids on buses. And I understand your point 100%, but where I'm coming from is, out of our mind should be the mere thought of a cost for a meal. I mean, it shouldn't even register in our thinking that kids go to school 6 hours. They deserve to walk to a cafeteria, get without any thought to a dime cost. It just makes too much sense, doesn't it? But here we are, 2023, still talking about it.
Yes. Treasurer Folwell.
Thank you for sharing that story. That happened to me in 1970. And the boys weren't as kind to me as your experience, and that's how I lost this tooth right here, from that bullying. So there's all kinds of bullying going on, and say on behalf of everyone how proud we are of you as we approach Easter and Mother's Day, how proud we are of your mother.
Yes.
Just quickly to go back to the Lieutenant Governor's comments about feeding. I don't know if it was New Hampshire or one of those New England states here recently passed a law that every child who comes to school would eat lunch free. I don't know if it was New Hampshire, but one of the New England states. So it can be done. It can be done. It all depends on whether or not we're willing to do it. And I don't even want to think about these.
Not going to go back down memory lane.
But anyway, thank you for this.
Superintendent Truitt.
Thank you. I've been approached by so many advocacy groups about this issue, and always enjoy learning more about something that shouldn't be controversial but is. And so I would just say to my fellow conservatives that the issue of free meals for all in the end ends up helping the working poor more than any other group. And for that reason, I am just philosophically and personally in favor of free meals for all.
Leah, thank you so much for not just writing the article, but sharing it with us today.
I got through it, yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, for acknowledging that and making your comments. Appreciate that.
All right. We will now vote on any item requiring action from your committee reports. A discussion or report will provide on each item, including any respective consent items. Remember, any item on the consent agenda is primarily not complex and may have come to the board for discussion the prior month. I note also that the board members have seen these consent agenda items since last week. At this time, I ask if there is a request to remove any items from the consent action or action on first read agendas, and I exclude from that EICS 3, which we will have removed and vote on separately with the several motions. If there's no request to remove any additional item.
I do. I have one. I'm sorry.
All right.
Am I too early?
No. I was going to say, please give it. No, please.
Oh, you want me to go ahead?
Yes, please. Please.
I went to see if on, I guess it would be in BizOp 1.
Yes, sir.
What is it? ISKME.
Yes, sir.
The bid on that contract, if you could separate that one, please.
I will.
Thank
And Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I've gotten pretty good at reading tea leaves, and so I would like to amend the motion on the ZECA.
Okay.
Would you like me to offer that amended motion
I
at
think
this time?
Yes, I think that would be good. Give everyone a moment to think about it before we get to voting on it.
Thank you. So, to recapture the conversation, the previous motion on the floor was to approve the closure of ZECA. I'd like to now amend that motion, given the discussion that we've had at the table today, to conditionally approve a 3-year charter renewal for ZECA, School of Arts and Technology, with the following steps, and they are different than the ones that I previously mentioned. The school must submit to the charter school office by May 31st. May 31st. A 3-year plan designed to improve instruction at the school. The plan must include specific research-based strategies that are designed and proven to be effective in turning around the instruction at a low-performing school. The plan must be approved by the Charter School Advisory Board, or presented to the Charter School Advisory Board for consideration and approval at its June 2023 meeting. If the Charter School Advisory Board does not find that the submitted plan is likely to result in improved academic outcomes, let me say that 3 times, academic outcomes for ZECA students, it will make recommendations for changes that must be included in the plan in order to obtain CSAB's approval. Alternatively, CSAB may determine what changes need to be made to the plan and direct that they be made. Failure to have a CSAB approved plan in place by June 30th will result in the termination of ZECA's charter on that date. ZECA must implement with fidelity the plan approved by CSAB, or it will not be eligible for a further charter. Training. During the 2023-24 academic year, members of the ZECA Board of Directors and ZECA school leadership, including the school director and school principal, must each participate in at least 10 leadership or instructional practice training modules or sessions recommended by the Office of Charter Schools or CSAB. Further, these same leaders must participate in at least 5 hours of training annually during the 2nd and 3rd years of the renewed charter. 2, all teachers working at ZECA must receive meaningful training by an experienced educational professional on how to improve instructional outcomes for students. 3, ZECA must meet or exceed academic growth standards for at least 2 of the 3 academic years prior to reconsideration of its charter in 3 years. And 4, compliance with financial and legal requirements during the next 3 years of its charter. If approved, ZECA must not have any financial compliance warnings and must comply with all legal requirements in its delivery of educational services, including compliance with federal exceptional children's laws and regulations. In summary, this would move ZECA off of the closure list or non-renewal list and onto the 3-year charter removal with the stipulations as outlined in this renewed, this subsequent motion.
Thank you. Is there a second required from that motion, since we have it before it's the committee offering this?
It's
The
coming
committee
out
is
of,
offering.
it's coming out of committee.
Very good. Thank you. All right. So that will be the new motion 5 of the 5 motions that will rise out of EICS 3. Are there any requests to remove any other items, or have we now covered all of those? All right, very good. I think we're ready to vote then. Do we have a motion for the following? Approval of the meeting minutes for the March 1 through 2, 2023 meeting of the board. SLA items 1 through 2 and 5. EICS items 1 through 2. HRS item 3. ES&P item 1. And BizOp items 1 through 5 and 7 through 8, with the exception of the, bear with me, I'll get the right initials, with the exception of the ISK and meat contract, which we will vote on separately. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Second, we have a motion second. All right. Dr. Petrie Martin?
Dr. Oxendine.
Discussion.
Yes, we'll, glad to have discussion.
So, what was removed from the agenda and this amended is not being voted on at this time?
That's correct.
I've been listening all morning, but I just want to make sure I'm
Yes.
on the same page.
We'll come to those items next.
Thank you.
Dr. Petrie Martin?
Dr. Oxendine.
Yes.
Mrs. Camnitz.
Yes.
Mr. Keenan.
Yes.
Mr. Hall.
Yes.
Dr. Tipton Rogers. Mrs. White.
Yes.
Mr. Blackburn.
Yes.
Dr. Ford.
Yes.
Treasurer Falwell.
Yes.
Lieutenant Governor Robinson.
Yes.
Vice Chair Duncan.
Yes.
Chair Davis.
All right, that passes unanimously. We'll now move to the 5 motions that arise from EICS 3. And our first one, motion 1, is to approve all of the recommended 10-year and 7-year renewals that have been made by CSAB. I don't know, yes.
So moved.
Thank you. We have-
Second.
All right,
Let's flip that. She's the chair. I'll second her motion.
all right. Dr. Petrie Martin, would you call the roll, please?
Dr. Oxendine.
Yes.
Mrs. Camnitz.
Yes.
Mr. Keenan.
Yes.
Mr. Hall.
Yes.
Dr. Tipton Rogers. Mrs. White.
Yes.
Mr. Blackburn.
Yes.
Dr. Ford.
Yes.
Treasurer Falwell.
Yes.
Lieutenant Governor Robinson.
Yes.
Vice Chair Duncan.
Yes.
Chair Davis.
All right, we will now move to the second motion arising out of EICS 3. And that is all of the 3-year renewal recommendations by CSAB, other than the 4 identified schools that will be the subject of motion 3. Those schools, as a reminder, are Monroe Charter, Paul R. Brown Leadership Academy, Rocky Mount Prep, and Apprentice Academy. Those are not included in motion 2. They will be the subject of motion 3.
So
Second.
All right, we ready to call the roll? Dr. Petrie Martin, please.
Yes. Dr. Oxendine.
Yes.
Mrs. Camnitz.
Yes.
Mr. Keenan.
Yes.
Mr. Hall.
Yes.
Dr. Tipton Rogers. Mrs. White.
Yes.
Mr. Blackburn.
Yes.
Dr. Ford.
Yes.
Treasurer Falwell.
Yes.
Lieutenant Governor Robinson.
Yes.
Vice Chair Duncan.
Yes.
Chair Davis.
We will now move to motion 3. Motion 3 is the motion that was read earlier today by Ms. White that suggests approval of the recommendation by CSAB, but with a number of stipulations that she has read for us. And if anyone wants them read again, I'm sure she will be glad to do that. The motion 3 will be to approve the 3-year charter for those 4 schools with compliance to the number of stipulations that are proposed in the committee's motion. Any questions or anyone need to hear the motion again? Are we ready to vote? Looks like we're ready to vote.
Clarification.
Certainly.
So as I was listening, coming up here, there's one of these schools that originally was recommended it to be closed, charter be terminated. Correct?
No.
Well, it could be, I don't know what you were listening to. At one point, it was said it was yesterday, someone said from the podium, the original inclination was to not vote for one of these. But then once they heard more and there was a new leader brought in, they changed their mind and decided to recommend it. I don't know if that's what you were listening to.
This is about an hour and a half ago, so.
Well, that didn't happen today.
This does not include the Z.
Yes.
Does not include Z.
Okay, all right.
Yep.
Okay. Sorry, I wasn't sure what you were referring to.
Your renewals
Yes.
with stipulations.
I apologize.
No problem. Yes, hard to listen.
All right.
Would you just, man, listen to 4?
Yes.
And that's the 4 that we're.
They are Monroe Charter, Paul R. Brown Leadership Academy, Rocky Mount Prep, an apprentice academy. ZECA will be the subject, if it was ZECA you're referring to, that will be the subject of a motion number 5. All right, I think we're ready to vote. Dr. Petrie Martin?
Did we?
Oh, I'm sorry.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, very good. Now we're ready to vote.
Yes.
Dr. Oxendine,
Yes.
Mrs. Camnitz.
Yes.
Mr. Keenan,
Yes.
Mr. Hall,
Yes.
Dr. Tipton Rogers, Mrs. White,
Yes.
Mr. Blackburn,
Yes.
Dr. Ford,
Yes.
Treasurer Falwell,
Yes.
Lieutenant Governor Robinson,
Yes.
Vice Chair Duncan,
No. We'll now move on to motion number 4. This motion is to not renew Eastside Stream Academy for the reasons that were stated earlier today by Ms. White. Any discussion or clarification needed on this motion?
So moved.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you.
Discussion.
Yes.
Not to renew, but how's that relate to the amendments, the adjustments that she should
So there are 2 schools before us that were recommended by the Charter School Advisory Board for non-renewals. One of those schools is Eastside Stream, and the other school is ZECA School of Arts and Technology. And so we're voting separately on those, and Eastside Stream is the first vote. And we made an amended motion for ZECA that does not include closing them. It's we'll discuss that motion in a minute.
Yes.
So this is Eastside Stream.
Yes.
And Eastside Stream, the motion on the floor, which I am making, is that we vote to uphold the CSAB recommendation that Eastside Stream not be, its charter is not renewed.
Thank you. All right, Dr. Petrie Martin?
Dr. Oxendine,
Yes.
Mrs. Camnitz.
Yes.
Mr. Keenan,
Yes.
Mr. Hall,
Yes.
Dr. Tipton Rogers, Mrs. White,
Yes.
Mr. Blackburn,
Yes.
Dr. Ford,
Yes.
Treasurer Falwell,
Yes.
Lieutenant Governor Robinson,
Yes.
Vice Chair Duncan,
Yes.
Chair Davis.
That brings us to the final sub-motion, the ICS 3. But I really appreciate how this is broken down. It's a really good way to be able to understand everything, and thank you for the questions to make sure clarifications are there.
Some of the names sound alike when you're driving.
All right, our 5th motion is as amended, as just was given by Ms. White just a little while ago, is to approve the ZECA School of the Arts and Technology for another 3 years with a number of stipulations, and these stipulations are different than what we just voted on with respect to motion 3 on Monroe, Paul Brown, Rocky Mountain Apprentice. And they have different timelines, and they also have different requirements. And so Ms. White, I'm sure would be glad to read that again if anyone needs to. So I'm going to stop in case anybody wants the motion read again.
I don't know whether I'm out of order or not. Do you need to read it before I ask my question, or is this a discussion?
If you don't need it read again, you can ask your question.
All right, I don't need it read. I just want to make sure that some way or other, letters training gets built into the stipulation. I mean, is that something that the Office of Charter Schools can work through, perhaps?
The way
Unless they're already getting the training.
So the way the motion is written is that the charter school, the plan must be presented to the charter school for consideration and approval of its June 2023 meeting. And so CSAB may determine what changes need to be made to the plan and direct that they be made. And so with a strong recommendation from this board, we would encourage CSAB to include that literacy training letters literacy training in the training that's required at the school. If you want to put it in the motion, we can put it in the motion. They have a lot of heavy lifting to do. Superintendent.
It would be, it's very possible it would be an unfunded mandate. I just want to make sure the board realizes that.
Expensive.
Well, I would imagine reading is part of the problem. So how are we going to ensure that quality professional development is provided to those teachers? I would imagine that's a crux of the problem.
I would suggest to you that 100% it is the crux of the problem. We can give direction and we can give requirement. It will be up to that board and that school leader to decide what plan they feel is best, and there is no time to waste.
If we can be certain of that, I hope that we will hear from the progress of these stipulations on a regular basis. We can't dilly-dally around with what we know is the problem.
Superintendent.
I believe that ZECA still has ESSER funds left over. And so I would support them being strongly encouraged to expend those funds on letters training.
That would be good. That sounds like more in the direction I would want to hear.
I think we cannot compel that.
That's
We can merely
correct.
suggest, as the
That's-
superintendent has done.
That's
Yes.
correct.
Yes.
However, we're talking about it, and that is going to have some impact.
Yes.
So a reminder, the school improvement plan must be approved by the Charter School Advisory Board, and we do have Charter School Advisory Board members in attendance today, and they are hearing this board's urgency that significant, let's see, I think the word here is experienced educational, professional, and meaningful training to improve instructional outcomes for students is outlined under the subsection B of training. And I know, hearing the conversations today and given this window of opportunity for the school, that I'm hoping that our CSAB members will also bring that same degree of urgency when they have that discussion with the school and its leaders.
And not to muddy the waters anymore, I'm ready to vote. Could we not say that the board strongly encourage the use of letters training as a part of their school improvement plan? What's wrong with that language?
I accept that as a secondary friendly amendment, since we've, Mr. Hall, in your, you would like that included in training. This would, under training,
Yes.
which is letter B in the stipulations, it is number 2 under training, so that the wording could be all teachers working at ZECA must receive meaningful training by an experienced educational professional on how to improve instructional outcomes for students. Your amendment would include the sentence, the State Board of Education strongly urges leadership at ZECA to invest and provide letters training for all staff.
Sound good to me what I just said?
I think you said encourages rather than urges. That might be a better word.
Encourages.
Encourage.
Otherwise, we're back to that mandate issue.
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
Encourages is good.
That's good.
Letters is good.
All right, so
So we
is
need
that a
to, so
motion?
it is, so we need to vote on the friendly amendment to the original.
Right, we haven't voted yet on this one, so.
Clarification.
Can we finish the friendly amendment and then come to you, Treasurer?
Well, it's part of the amendment.
Okay, then we should come to you, thank you.
Why 3 years, not 1 year?
There was a discussion about that yesterday. In 1 year, you can't get sufficiently meaningful data to make it, to tell that there's been any change in a 1 year time.
So voting against this amendment, if that carried through, would be a vote to take the original recommendation to shut the school down.
Yes, it would be voting No on this amendment means that you are voting with the recommendation of CSAP for non-renewal. Okay. I think I said that right. Is that right, Ms. White?
Correct.
Thank you. Do we have a second in Ms. White's motion? Second. Any further discussion? Are we ready to vote? All right. Thank you for everyone's patience and clarifying remarks. Dr. Petrie Martin?
Dr. Oxendine,
Yes.
Mrs. Kamnitz,
Yes.
Mr. Keenan,
Yes.
Mr. Hall,
Yes.
Dr. Tipton Rogers, Mrs. White,
Yes.
Mr. Blackburn,
Yes.
Mr. Ford,
Yes.
Treasurer Falwell,
Yes.
Lieutenant Governor Robinson,
Yes.
Vice Chair Duncan,
No.
Chair Davis.
All right, that brings us then
May I say
to,
what I say?
yes, certainly.
The last comment I'd like to make is that this is for parents, friends, administrators who may be listening on stream about what we just did. I just want to reiterate that Ms. White said there's a lot of work to be done. We have given you a chance. It's a lot of work. Whatever I can do as a board member, and I'm sure others feel the same way. Our interest is for the children. Children first. And again, I just want to reemphasize that. These things that were set out today must be done. The stipulation must be done. The deadline must be done. We have agonized in a good way, all this board and about what to do for your school. And I'm finishing saying that I remember there's a scripture said, oh, faith, right? But faith without works is what?
Dead.
So we must go to work. And with that, I'm through with it. So wish everybody well, and thanks to everyone.
Thank you, Mr. Keenan. We have one final motion still before us. I think the motion would be to approve the contract extension with ISKME. And is there a second for that motion?
I'll say, just separate it.
We have separated, yes.
Oh.
We've already voted for the rest of BizOp, so this is just that one contract.
I'll second it, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. All right, any further discussion on this item, or are we ready to call the roll?
I'm a bit confused. So what are we doing?
The contract number 2, under part of BizOp 1, is contract extension with ISKME, which has to do with the Open Ed North Carolina materials. And Lieutenant Governor asked that that item be pulled for a separate vote.
So we're asking if that motion, if you were seconding that motion to separate, or has it already been separated?
It's already separated. You voted on the rest of
Okay,
BizOp.
don't think I'm crazy when I vote. I'll explain later.
Okay. I look forward to it.
Late night TV.
Yeah.
Oh,
All right, very,
That's what things happen, guys.
very good. We got
We
a.
are crazy, but it doesn't have anything to do with the vote.
All right, do we have a motion? Somebody second? Oh, yes, you did. Thank you, John. Black. All right, we're ready to vote then.
All right, Dr. Oxendine,
Yes.
Mrs. Kamnitz,
Yes.
Mr. Keenan,
Yes.
Mr. Hall,
Yes.
Dr. Tipton Rogers, Mrs. White,
Yes.
Mr. Blackburn,
Yes.
Dr. Ford,
Yes.
Treasurer Falwell,
Yes.
Lieutenant Governor Robinson,
Yes.
Vice Chair Duncan,
Yes.
Chair Davis.
All right, that brings an end to our voting today on items, and I appreciate everyone's
Discussions go late into the night, folks.
patience today as we work through all of this. Before we adjourn, let me thank staff at DTI and our superintendent for all their hard work in preparing for this month's meeting, and the hard work that all of our staff do and our superintendents out in the audience do to support the children of North Carolina. We are most appreciative and very grateful for all the work that you do.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Treasurer.
I'm asking officially that we include on the agenda item in not too distant future for a 5-minute discussion from me to talk about the transition of one of the most important things in the lives of our public servants, and that is the transition from Blue Cross to Aetna. And I'm asking that officially that be added to the agenda.
We will do that.
And as I do that, I want to just remind the audience as we go into this, that in the terms of an automobile, the body of the state health plan has not changed. The body is made up of appointees of the governor, the president pro tem, the speaker, and myself. That body is still there. They set benefits, deductibles, co-pays, everything. The engine of this plan has not changed. The engine is the funding that comes from the employing units and the individual employees, either by individual coverage or family coverage. That has not changed. We are changing the transmission, who transmits all the claims, and just want to add ask that officially be added to an agenda in the not too distant future.
We will do that.
This takes place a year and 8 months from now. But it's never too early to talk about what's getting ready to happen when you change out a transmission.
And we will check with you to confirm that whenever we set on the agenda, it does not conflict with something else on your busy schedule.
I certainly look forward to that.
So,
Thank you for that analogy. Now I get it.
all right, just last couple of things. We will have our biannual and work session May 2nd and 3rd at the UNC Charlotte's Cone Center. Our regular scheduled board meeting will be held on May 4th at the same location. At this time, the moment you all were waiting for, I call for the motion and second to adjourn.
You got it.
All right, I'm going to ask Dr. Petrie Martin if you'd be so kind as to call the roll to capture the vote.
Yes, Dr. Oxendine.
Yes.
Mrs. Camden.
Yes.
Mr. Keenan.
Yes.
Mr. Ho.
Yes.
Dr. Tipton Rogers. Mrs. White.
Yes.
Mr. Blackburn.
Yes.
Dr. Ford.
Yes.
Treasurer Caldwell.
Yes.
Lieutenant Governor Robinson.
Yes.
Vice Chair Duncan.
Yes,
Chair Davis.
we stand adjourned.
All righty. Hey.
Good grief. No, are you kidding?